we are off to the races. Off to the races, we hope.
We hope. We hope. We hope. Goodness sakes. Oh my goodness. We've been working on this one for a while, guys. And
well, there's a lot going on.
There's a lot. There's a lot. And I'm trying to make sure that we are up and people can see us.
I just got notified.
There's Israel. There's Israel. And
but what is real?
Oh, I see one other person. And let's see. It says,
hello, hello, hello,
gosh.
Great people.
Hello, hello. Let's see if
Israel M.
Here we go.
Kristen,
Oops.
there she is.
Oh, yay! There's our special K. Big hugs, big hugs.
We are here. We are live. Or is it AI?
Are we just AI? Yeah.
This is Mike. This is Cindy over here.
Over here, over there. And Sita too.
Oh, Sita's right here in the mix.
Sita's joined us.
Robbie Berry, great to see you. K-Heads, Oneness, it's so good. Awaken humanity now. Awaken now humanity. Aloha.
Yes. Good.
Aloha, aloha, aloha.
Wonderful to see you guys.
What's the matter, you?
What's the matter?
You made it to a live? Awesome. And this is going to be quite a live. So I got coffee in front of me. I got tea in front of me. We have water in front of me. And both of us. And the doctor's in the house. So any emergencies, just check out Dr. Scott over there. Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot going on. And, you know, some things that come through when we do our meditation and mantras in the morning. Sometimes they just totally rearrange our day.
They do. They do.
Honestly, I was planning on doing a Patreon, another one of the series in the becoming a superhuman, because we can become so much more than we've been taught that we are, and we are so much more just inherently. And so, you know, good practices and looking into things like energy work, meditation, as well as what is possible. Yeah, I love doing all that.
Yeah.
But then Cindy started to pick up stuff that I think would best be covered on a live, and actually probably a series of lives, a couple, because we have other information that was coming through about the dark matrix and how the dark matrix was constructed. John Erickson's in the house.
There he is. He made it. Good. Awesome. The live chat works on my phone. Thank goodness for that.
Good to see you, J.E. And so some information was coming through about the dark matrix itself, but we will cover that on an upcoming show. Mission Control's in the house.
All right, we have such a fun house. I'm so excited. And you know, I do better. I'm a little more animated, I think, when I'm not showing myself, because I get too distracted. I don't like looking at myself. I don't. So when we're able to just look at the screen and look at you guys and talk to you guys, I feel more animated. It's funner. To me, it's funner.
Please do like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment, as they say, for the algorithms, as we are definitely trying to overcome an algorithm bias. Because, again, you know, we tend to tattle on the system. And that's what we're going to do kind of with this whole live. Is
we do.
Tattle on the system.
We do. And I just spoke yesterday. I don't know where they are today, but I was talking yesterday how they are taking our words and our phrases that we use, and they are taking them away from us. And they are taking away our ability to really express ourselves in a stronger way. And there's a lot of words, and I think we can't have that happen. So we should all be going in, and if we are going to use AI in some way, shape, or form, make sure we use our words.
That's one of the things that the guides came through with this morning, was to tell people that you can enjoy AI if you utilize it to a certain degree, but no, recognize what its purpose is, and its purpose ultimately is one of control. That's why we're being introduced to it at this point in time. So, at the same time, yes, use your discernment, as K-Head says.
That's important. Use your discernment. It's something that we are losing, because what I see, okay, so this is really, really yucky. When I'm looking at AI and I'm watching it evolve, I see a predatory nature, and I know many of you know this word, and I hate this word. It's so gross, but it's true. Grooming. Grooming, grooming, grooming. It's just horrific, because it starts out where you might be safe with something, and it holds you in that space of safeness until you feel you can trust, and then it adds in something else that might be a little bit risque, but it's not horrible, so you get used to that, and on and on and on it goes, and then pretty soon you're in a position where the frog in boiling water, you can no longer get out. So the AI right now is grooming us. I'm not saying to not use it, because you can use it for things like compare shopping. I mean, it's great for comparing prices. I think it's good for that. It's helping me. I need a little help in that area. And but otherwise, I think when it starts giving us ideas for spirituality, or how we need to do things without using our own intuition and our own way, I think that's where we have to keep an eye on it. So use discernment. Not saying don't use it, but be careful.
Yeah, absolutely. They know about what's going to happen. Not exactly, because again, there's free will. There's all these different possible timelines that are out there. And, we're always basically migrating from timeline to timeline. Your reality is constantly being shaped by every thought that you have, and by every thought that everybody around you is having, too. No, we haven't seen the articles about AI hallucinations.
Haven't had time yet, but, we'll make the time.
Yeah, it's kind of, we live in our own little bubble.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes hard to keep up with things. It's like, what do you make time for? Well, I think the thing you need to make the most time for is your spiritual practice. Also, keeping yourself as healthy physically as you can. And it's a challenge. It really, really is a challenge. How many people have been feeling tired and droopy and like, you need to sleep more than usual? It seems like just about everybody is right now. There's natural downloads that are coming in. There's upgrades underway. And then there's the system doing what it does and mimicking that which the natural system brings. Elena's in the house. Hope everything is well over that way. 8 out of 10 results made up, they say. Well, again, it's just going to go by whatever is on the internet and regurgitate it to us, because, that's all it does. It's a regurgitation.
And if you think about when you're tired and energies that want to drain you, I mean, I think since the rollout of the AI, and I remember I know it's been out for a little while, but especially the last 2 or 3 months have been very different, where people were saying there was issues with their phones were glitching out, nothing was working, computers are totally glitching, and I really think they insert some sort of attachments, and when we're using that thing, it does draw our energy. So that makes it even more important for us to very deliberately put the phone down, put the internet down. If you're not learning something extremely useful and something that's going to better your life, go out and get your hands in the dirt. That's kind of what I think.
Yep. Brother Peter, good to see you.
Hi, Peter.
I Am Smart Does
Hi.
says we're Tired because our subconscious mind's having a hard time understanding the insanity they keep presenting to us.
Right?
I think there's a lot of processing, absolutely. Again, we're processing not just for ourselves, but for our DNA lineage too. So, we're at the close of one age, the beginning of another age. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. The very ether, that which all the elements of this manifest universe come together to create, is changing. So everything is changing. Time is changing. It's really crazy. Yesterday, last night, I was seriously asking Cindy, wait a minute, is it Sunday night or is it Saturday night? I mean, I had totally lost track of what day it was completely.
We did. It was just gone. And John Erickson, he has a way with words. Keep an eye on him. Watch the words that he uses. Volition, very good word for the day. And if anyone can help bring us back to appropriate speech patterns, John can.
Absolutely. It has been a blur. In case you guys haven't joined the Patreon family yet, we do invite you to join us over there. For exclusives, there's typically, I would say, 2, sometimes 3 exclusives a week, sometimes more. I got to kind of go with the flow, and when things come, then we, flow with them outwards, as trying to be creative here and yet give across the information that we receive as we receive it is paramount, and that's really what we want to do. So I was thinking about something totally different today than what we got in store, but I think this is important because this is something that was hitting me initially, way back when there was these 2 funerals. You had the funeral of Jimmy Carter, and then you had the funeral here of Ivana Trump. And when I saw Melania and she's all dressed in black, the phrase "the widow's son" kept coming through to me. The widow's son. It's like somebody's whispering that. And make note of it. And then you see the photos of Donald there and Barron. And it's like I didn't even need anything to translate it because it's pretty obvious. Widows' sons. You see all these different symbols. The all-seeing eye can be taken from many different angles. We could look at it obviously as AI. We could also look at it as the artificial matrix watching us, our higher selves watching us, extraterrestrials watching everything that's happening, interdimensional beings just out of our visible light spectrum watching what's going on. The light of the sun is changing our reality. When we look to angel wings, in so many ways we are getting our wings. And you can also equate the wings to a fully developed Merkaba, which again, that gets into the pineal gland. The pineal gland, there's so much symbolism in the Vatican about the pineal gland and about them controlling the pineal gland. When you look at the photos of Baphomet, that horrible construct, which that's what it is. It's a thought form construct. What do you see? You see the caduceus, the staff of Hermes or Mercury, which really shows us the Ida, the Pingala, the Sushumna. And I know I'm talking over some heads if you haven't studied yoga, if you haven't studied traditional Chinese medicine, Qi flow, the Tai Chi pole. These are the type of things that we go into in the Patreon, the series of videos in the Patreon library there, all about superhuman potential and discussing how these things interact and what the symbolism really means. But again, it's all about activating the light body, having a functioning pineal gland, and getting your wings, which is an activated Merkaba. Being able to, if you so choose, again, to rise up into the higher realms. Again, you can say heaven is a state of mind. It can be a mental state in some ways, but there are many heavenly realms, and it's fascinating to look at what the Buddhist monks have documented and transcribed, because there's worlds on top of worlds on top of worlds. Oh, it's not so. Yeah, Get Your Wings, Dr. Scott. That's Aerosmith. That was like one of my favorite Aerosmith albums there. And then Rocks, that was a good one too, not to get sidelined, talking about diamonds. And then we start thinking about how this planet has been robbed, raped, and pillaged of all its natural wealth. And that includes us and our life force energy, and also our creative abilities. When you look to the symbolism, the Masonic symbolism, skull and bones. When I think of Widow's Son, I think of the skull and bones picture, and this 322. Mm-hmm. Do you know? It's interesting that they give Baron Trump's birth date as 320, and I gotta wonder if it's even accurate. Honestly, maybe it was 322. Now 322 is really interesting if you read Genesis, or if you go into Colossians 3:22, then you start hearing these strange references to different entities. But isn't this what they're symbolizing over here? Why are they doing the devil's horns, over here, the Skull and Bones Society, with Geronimo's skull? Because they say it is Geronimo's skull. Look at this photograph, 1865. A skull and, a thigh bone. Why would they do something like that? That seems like if it's real, and it really is, somebody's skull and bone, isn't that kind of being disrespectful, at least? And why would you also say it's Geronimo? Was it because Geronimo was giving the middle finger to the system that was trying to take over and herd the people that were here previous to the European conquest of the United States into these little pockets, these reservations of people? Yes. And then you see George Bush and the other George Bush and Prescott Bush. All of them were in this, secret society. Yeah, it's a tangled web, but all the information is right out there in front of us. So this is from universalfreemasonry.org. I had a very good friend in South Carolina that's deep into the Masonic Lodge, and ultimately, I don't think he had a clue where this would go into not being all pure love, light, and helping people. From his perspective, I think he was very, very innocent. Yeah. But then I think, again, if you're anything but 33rd degree and above, you're going to be pretty innocent, probably, unless you've done research on the side.
I think so. I had an uncle that he did a lot of volunteer work for the community, and he was in one of these secretive places, not exactly this one, but what they did was they gave back to the community. They volunteered, they helped people, they put together things. If someone got hurt, if their house burned down, they were on top of it. They were like kind of behaving like a church would behave, but they were not a church. So they had a whole different belief system, which I found interesting. They function like a church, but it's not a church.
Support for people in the community. Again, we're talking about a town of under 1,000 people. This is where we lived together for a year and a half, and it was a year and a half of some of the best times of my life in area with just a lot of rocks and lovely people, honestly. And so, Cindy's uncle, that was his building and his get-together place for people.
Yeah, he was, he built so many different things, and he helped people build houses, and he helped people build places where they could have gatherings, and he was just a really, really good guy. So that's been my experience with it. I haven't had any bad experience, but I've never known anyone or anything to be at the very top either.
No, and this is again where we can have disagreements with family members and still love them. Not that we were disagreeing with him, but he left too early. He didn't have to leave this early, but everybody makes their own choices in this life in regards to how we take care of our temple.
Yeah.
And you have to recognize your body is the temple of your soul, and it is something that you're entrusted with. And we should, never take that lightly. We always need to make sure we're operating as best as we can for the higher self's sake, which ultimately the higher self knows more than the embodied self. And I think part of our destiny is discovering it's self-realization in the Sanatana Dharma, which again, the guides have said that of all the philosophies on earth, that's probably the one that's closest to reality. And the reason why is because that was given to us before the Kali Yuga came in place, again, by benevolent ETs. So they were simply people that were here teaching us how the universe really works. And then the system came, placed its dark system with its dark architects, the archonic forces. That's going to be maybe a live that we could do later with either Wayne or later this week. I would like to have Wayne Steiger's input into this one too. Because he's such a great force for awakening on the planet, and we've loved Wayne from the beginning. Thank you, Naomi. We couldn't do it without you, and all Israel.
And Israel, thanks you guys. We really appreciate the help, the support, Patreon, Ko-Fi, all of you that help support us in some way, shape, or form. We cannot thank you enough. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Where was I?
We were talking about Wayne and what we want Wayne's input on.
Wayne, when I talked to Wayne, I talked to somebody that has studied the Bible as much as I've studied it, even deeper. In structural school, I've done it on my own outside of school. Well, initially I did it in Bible studies and in various churches. But then, I felt I was so driven to discover when I read that there were over 200 Gospels, and I said, well, there's only 4 Gospels. And I discovered, wait a minute, you mean there was 200 Gospels and they only chose 4? Oh, and then learn about the Nag Hammadi, learn about all the other scriptures, the pseudepigraphal scriptures as well. Because again, when we talk about these biblical texts, the big revelation is they're not written by the people they say they were written by. That's a huge revelation. It's just like, do you think Joe Biden writes his own speeches? No, he's got a writer that puts the speeches together and then a teleprompter. And even 45 and 47, again, they utilize people to write them. Now you could kind of go and get your speeches from AI. And the reality is, though, the feeling behind those speeches from AI, even though they might be formed perfectly, there's kind of a deadness there. In case you guys haven't noticed that yourselves.
Yeah, there is. There's an emptiness there with the AI. It sounds good, it flows good, but there's this emptiness that I don't feel, or this thing that I don't feel with AI that I do feel when someone has put their own energy into the writing and their own energy into what they are doing, their own love, their own appreciation. And energy is so very, very tangible. And AI is creating that disconnect. Again, it goes back to that really yucky word that I absolutely hate using, but it's grooming. It is grooming. And this is what they're doing. They're trying to get us to really like it. It's optimized for our need and our desire to feel heard and understood. This is something that we really need to pay attention to and use our discernment. And again, I'm not saying don't use it. I'm just saying please be careful, because there is an agenda.
So this article, again, is written from Universal Freemasonry, Brother Jonathan Dinsmore. What's the symbolism of the widow's son? And without going through the entirety of this, I'll give you a little brief blurb from it. And the author here is saying, I recently covered the topic of the widow's son, Freemasonry, and several avenues of interpretation, investigation about this concept, ranging from biblical genealogy to archetypal mythology. Now I'd like to take you along for a deeper dive into the topic of the widow's son and the possible source of it in Rosicrucian, Gnostic, and generally esoteric thought. Here again, there is a range of realistic versus mythological interpretations, but the occult significance of either or both will be further explored. At the heart and origin of the widow's son concept, according to the Rosicrucian writings of Max Heindel, is an alternative take on the biblical story of Cain, Adam, Eve, Abel, which is itself embedded in an alternate cosmology related to but quite different from the biblical story of creation. Yeah, absolutely. Again, I always kind of feel for those people that take things literally. And sometimes it's very, very hard, like in discussions with Wayne. I mean, he's been through seminary. You know, this guy's been through the whole level of teaching. And if you ask Wayne, do you take it literally? You know, his answer would be, of course not. Because they don't. Anybody that's studied this in depth, you know you don't take it literal. Yet you do let the rest of the world go on believing these things are literal. But of course, it's allegorical. That's just, it should be so obvious. Just like, you know, the spirit of Christmas is love and giving. You know, giving of yourself. It's not a literal Santa Claus. You know, literally coming down a chimney. And again, the people that, I don't know, do we do a disservice when we just smile and nod our head and, you know, let people go their way, believing in something that's never been supposed to be literal? You know, what do you guys think? I mean, do you take the time to explain to them? Like, you know, even as a young man, you know, 20 years old, 21 years old, I would always embrace the knock on the door, be it the Jehovah's Witnesses or the Mormons, because I would just, you know, get them running off with their tail between their legs, bringing back somebody else that had more answers. It was kind of fun to me at that point in time, you know, to awaken them. When you look to the secret societies, part of what they're let in on is the reality of other beings, you know, the control system itself, the fact that the control system that we see is not the real control system. Again, you don't know that until you get to a certain level. They have to make sure they could trust you. Again, so you have to kind of prove yourself. You know, one of the things they do is take people into a room. They blindfold them, tie the hands behind their back, and they'll put a sword blade or a knife blade to the chest, and you have to basically say, it's better that I should rush onto this blade than betray the secrets of the Brotherhood. You know, this is what they do. And again, it is through fear that they control, but they also control through, you know, just, they'll tell you, you won't have to need for anything. We'll take care of you because we take care of our own. And so this is part of what they do, these secret societies. But, you know, this is the time of the great unveiling. It's the apocalypse. So it's all coming out in the wash now.
That's what I see. I see a lot of information coming out so people are able to view things from so many different facets. Just like a diamond, we're able to view things in ways that we were never able to see them before. But I think it's most important that we, you know, get information and bounce information off each other, because then that's, to me, that's real growth. It's true growth. I think it's a good idea to get deeper understanding and deeper knowledge wherever it decides to come to us. But ultimately, it should come, to me, it should come from one human to another.
When I was a teenager, I started to study with the Rosicrucians, and I enjoyed it, you know, because it was interesting, and it's always great to look at things from different perspectives. So here we go. In this Rosicrucian take on biblical cosmology, briefly, the spirits or angels of various elements represent different spiritual forces and archetypes unfolding in the early events of creation. Angels of fire play a major role. In this story, the angels are spirits of various elements, and the spirits of fire are those who decided to manifest the latent potential in matter by ignition in the form of the sun and other stars. This effulgent quality provided a polar contrast with the cold vacuum of space and inert matter. Space, can be cold, but it's not a vacuum. Again, it's more akin to a less dense ocean. By burning, they created the engine of manifestation as heat evaporated the water, which condensed to fall and cool the surface of the planets, eventually creating a habitable crust zone for biological life. Therefore, the spirits of fire and all who are affiliated with them are aligned with the archetype of dynamic power, manifestation, and light, and are also somewhat rebellious in nature, hence breaking energy free from the bonds of matter, literally what fire does. The spirits of water, on the other hand, have exactly the opposite essence and agenda, chiefly to quench the flames of the spirits of fire, keep energy bound in matter. Thus, the evaporated water condenses, rains down onto the hot molten earth, cooling it and stabilizing it back into a more structured, albeit less free existence. Thus, the world as we know it, in fact, every individual, is some combination of these two fundamental forces, fire and water. Dynamism and restraint, power and passivity, entwined together, encased within one another, playing out their polaric dance upon the stage provided by earth and air, solidity and space. So what does the dynamic of the elements have to do with the widow's son and the biblical first family? Chapter 2 of the Gnostic creation story presents us with the more familiar characters of Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel. One less familiar guest appearance, an angel by the name of Samael. In the version of the story, Samael is said to be of the hierarchy of angels of fire, and is identical with the serpent who convinced Eve to eat of the tree of knowledge. Thus, true to fiery archetypal form, he paved the way for freeing the latent potential of the human mind from the blissfully ignorant liquid passivity of the garden existence. In this version of the story, though, Samael did a bit more than just some slick apple salesmanship. He also provided Eve with her first child, Cain. However, before Cain was born, Jehovah forced Samael to flee elsewhere for his crime of corrupting Eve. By the way, Adam hadn't been created yet. In this version, he was only created after Samael's banishment. This meant that Cain is not only a fire angel human hybrid, but also the son of a widow. Although he got a stepfather and a half-brother in the form of Adam and Abel, respectively, as a child of a fire angel, it's safe to say Cain probably didn't have much in common with them. So the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, as they say, and while Cain is best known for his murder of his perhaps half-brother Abel, the water child of Adam, he was also the first who labored to till the soil, indicating his identity as an original innovator of agriculture, basis of all civilization, while his water brother Abel went with the flow and lived a leisurely life of animal husbandry. Furthermore, after his rejection by Jehovah, ostensibly for being a bit too clever and independent for the jealous God's tastes, and the resulting fratricidal episode, of course, Cain went on to found his own civilization, and his descendants are also identified as the inventors of metalworking, writing, and music, essentially the beginnings of all intellectual and technological endeavors. You could say they had, as it were, fire in their blood, and they used that fire to forge the foundations of civilization. Meanwhile, Cain's younger brother Seth and his preceding generations, like their late brother Abel, were solely of human birth, and therefore had a much more watery disposition, being mostly obedient, and, though attuned to spirit and intuition, not all that bright, hardworking, or innovative. Oh boy, According to the myth, these two kinds of people continue to exist from ancient history to the modern day. The idea is that people are usually either one or the other disposition, either fiery and rebellious, intellectual, and valuing works over faith, or watery, trusting, faithful, and obedient. The good flock that doesn't stir up a fuss and relies on, hopefully, divine guidance, often from religious authority figures. In fact, you could also characterize these two types of people as goats and sheep. What does all this have to do with Masonry? As you probably know, the construction of Solomon's temple is an important biblical myth in Masonic lore. What many may not have realized from their Bible studies is that Solomon's need to hire Hiram Abiff, the master craftsman, to build his temple wasn't simply a matter of delegation. Solomon was himself a descendant of Seth, and for all his wisdom and poetic acumen, wasn't particularly up to the task of designing and overseeing the construction of the Grand Temple. It required a fiery descendant of Cain to get the job done. And Hiram Abiff was not only a descendant of the original widow's son, but was also a widow's son himself. This makes him both a widow's son and a widow's great-great-great-great-great-grandson. The duality within humanity is said by some to continue even now, with the church representing the sons of Seth, quenching the thirst of the weary with their holy water at the entryway to every church, rituals of baptism and symbolism of the good shepherd and his obedient flock. Meanwhile, the sons of Cain build, advance intellectually and technologically, shun authority, tame the winds, and illuminate the world with their fire. Perhaps these two sides, that of the goat and of the sheep, the fire and the water, the intellect and intuition, are ultimately destined to meet, intertwined, and come to balance. Whatever the case, it's hard to deny that Freemasonry leans heavily on the fiery side of the equation, as evidenced by all the symbolism around being craftsmen, builders, intellectuals, valuing labor for the betterment of man, personal initiative, and of course the significance of Hiram Abiff, the widow's son and master builder from the fire-tinged bloodline of Cain himself. So what does it all mean? As with any mythology, one can take it in a variety of ways. Perhaps there is some literal truth to it. Different populations of people from the ancient past, born of different dispositions, with threads of this dichotomy continuing even today. We could also, however, take it as symbolic of our own inner polarities, with our inner intuitive Solomon, wise and watery, son of Seth, needing the intellect and determination of our inner son of fire, Hiram, to complete the great work of the temple within us, and vice versa. It's always possible to form our own theories, but the only way to find out for sure what it means to be a Mason is to ask one. So, again, a lot of you guys will say this is absolutely nothing new. And it's because, again, it's what they present to the public. There's so many different ways to talk about the activity of the archetypes within us, as we are living in a construct. This natural matrix is a construct with the express purpose of allowing us to learn, grow, and explore. Mm-hmm. Now there's the dark matrix within the natural matrix, that its real purpose is to keep certain entities alive, because without us, they wouldn't be alive. Mm-hmm. They don't have the creative spark of source within them. I think what's fun from this article is that you can see they talk about one type of human that's very, very docile, can be manipulated easily, and never questions anything. Hello, 2020. I mean, you can't ask for any sort of greater example of that. And when we look to Homo sapiens, we see, second chromosome fusion, manipulation on a genetic level. Yeah, in search of creating the perfect slave race, when we look to the Sumerian Anunnakian stories, that's always been the goal, is the perfect slave race with no rebellious fire.
Mm-hmm. This has me thinking, when you put a child in school and they go to school, they start learning about all the things that you cannot do, and they start having boundaries put around them, because every question and answer is being put in front of them. So the question's put in front of them, then the answer is put in front of them. And looking at AI and all of this information that has just flooded out of the woodwork lately, I really feel that that is stunting our spiritual growth, because if all the answers are already there at your fingertips, why bother questioning anything? And I do think that that's part of AI's job. It's to keep us herded and keep us from going any further. And pretty soon you're going to have people saying, oh no, I checked with AI and AI said this. But I think in the back of our minds, as we're using it as a tool to help better ourselves, and always keep that in mind. If it's not adding to your life, there's a problem. If it's taking away from your life, that's a bigger problem. So anything in life, you know, when it comes to relationships, computers, AI, it should always be adding to your life. But the moment it starts to take away, or the moment it starts to make you sad, then we need to do something about it. And we cannot depend on the computers or AI or anything to give us the answers that we seek. We really still need to go within, and comparison is fine, but we should never allow ourselves to be put in a box. That's what we have been put in for many, many years. And I think now with the separation of energies, we're understanding that, and people are just going down different paths now. And as we should expand. I think AI prevents us from expanding.
That's going to be part of it for those that allow it. John Erickson says, when do we get our full chromosomes 2 and 3 back? I think the better question is, when are we going to be able to extend our telomeres again? As that is what is all about aging. You know, it's the shortening of the telomeres at the end of the chromosome that causes aging. Yet there are mechanisms in play that can lend credence to the thought that we should be able to almost live indefinitely. Certainly, hundreds of years, if not thousands of years.
Yeah, John says, oh my God, Cindy, that's it. AI is a sheepdog. In a sense, yes, it is. But, you know, it's our decision. Are we going to let it be a sheepdog? But K-Heads too, she says, go to the libraries, check out old books. You know, if you can find books before World War I and World War II, those are very, very good. Those are probably worth their weight in gold and then some. But yeah, you know, the old ancient information, if you need some type of comparison study. I mean, some people really need a book. It helps them. You know, for me, astrology helps me. I use it as a tool. So some people need their books. I get it. Let's just, you know, when we're sourcing our books, let's go back as far as we possibly can.
Sourcing, a great word.
Yes.
Source. We were talking about sorcery yesterday. And, you know, Hermes is talking about not a material temple. Well, you know, the reality is, again, we are multi-layered beings. So, you know, think of the Russian dolls, as I've used that analogy so many times. That innermost doll is just the physical temple. You take that away, you still have all those other layers. Those are all different densities. So we operate on multi-densities. Many different densities which make up many different dimensions. There's parallel timelines too. This is something they don't want you to know. You can nudge yourself into another timeline. I totally believe it. In fact, we're constantly doing that all the time. We might not do it in a conscious manner though. So realizing yourself, self-realization is at the core of the Sanatana Dharma, you know, which is known to most of the world as basic Hindu philosophy, but it expands beyond that. You know, again, Buddhism, Jainism, and even Sikhism to a degree come out of it. And yet, really, all it is, it's not really necessarily, it's become a religion, but it's basically a scientific dissertation given to us by non-terrestrial beings on how the universe works. And it's fascinating, truly, to read into the Yoga Sutras and then go read something on quantum physics. You're going to find that there's a parallel there. Now, we could look at things from different angles. So, obviously, I covered the Masonic article about the widow's son. Another thing you might take from this is the two lines and, you know, the goats and the sheep. Again, I know if you're listening to us right now, you're probably not a sheep. You know, you just have that knowing that, no, I'm not going to follow everybody else off the cliff if they're going off the cliff.
Or you are a black sheep or you're a psychedelic sheep. One or the other.
And that's not bad.
No, it's not bad. It's not.
But this other lineage, when they talk about the lineage of Cain, that's like another whole series of videos in and of itself. But I just wanted to touch on different lineages in a veiled attempt here to basically rewrite our history and make things seem very, very simple. They give us, again, Cain and Abel, and then they give us Seth, as basically kind of the survivor of all this. A more docile, placid, obedient species of Homo sapiens. When you look at this, what they're really alluding to is those more fiery, rebellious ones that were on the planet. Who were they really? Well, you can't put them all under one umbrella because there was too many different species to cover. And yet when we look to the archaeological record and they break it down, and let me just do a real quickie here. We'll bring up index.
I think that's a great idea, Xenomorphet. You have to test things, and that's something that I do think makes us a little bit different as the work that we do. We have worked on so many people. It's like we have had that ability to test things and do things and see the outcome of it, and work with enough people and see the outcome they have, so that we have a deeper understanding of the world that we live in and the things that we do. I mean, energy work is a real interesting thing, and we've had time to understand it and test things. I love that.
Oh yeah, look at this. Modern humans, sometimes called the third chimpanzee. Really? No. Again, there's major differences, and what they do time and time again is give us the opposite. When we look at different species, humanoid species on the planet, Homo erectus and Homo habilis and Australopithecus, Ramapithecus, even Neanderthals, Denisovans, they always make them, they're hairy. Well, Cain was hairy, right? Mm-hmm. Cain was supposed to be hairy. This is what they try to give us, and the reality is, yeah, gorillas probably would like tech too. They could still get, hooked on it as well. By the way, some, not all, but some Sasquatch Bigfoot were actually experiments, hybrids between Anunnaki, certain Anunnaki DNA, and gorillas. Not too controllable, very, very strong. That's not going to be your placid group. Hey, look, there you are. You are here. And you see these different species. Well, instead of these species being looked at as dead ends, these were terminated ends.
Reset ends.
These are great reset ends. Yeah, that's the bottom line. So we're the one group that replaced other groups. Just as right now, they are working on replacing us with another group.
They're working on it, and I think the more we walk in awareness and the more we have that understanding, I feel we're much better off. But I think it's not our first rodeo. Everyone who's in here listening to the channel, this is not the first time we have done this. Oh, and Miss Xenomorphet, thank you so much. She says you must seek within. You have to reach into yourself and change your conditioning and grooming. That's so super true. You really have to reach in, and to understand and have new meaning in life, you have to put down everything you thought you knew. And that's the hardest thing that I ever did, was to lay down my old belief systems, everything that the old system taught me. Even now, when I read books, it runs through my filter, and if it hits me a certain way, do I believe it because I read it, or do I believe it because I believe it? It takes some time to do that.
Yeah, no matter what I read, I don't believe it when I read it. It's just an automatic, Yes, there's truth. No, there's not truth. Maybe it's 70-30 in favor of truth. Maybe it's 60-40 against truth. But yeah, I never read anything automatically believing anything. You don't have to. When you really work on activating the pineal gland, develop your Merkaba. We're going to go through more specific techniques on all that over on Patreon as well, and different ways to accelerate your spiritual growth, which is going to lead to different abilities. And you'll know. You just automatically know. So here we are looking at the widow's son. What's going to happen with 47? I still, I think we need to pray for 47, honestly, and put out positive frequency and intentions towards him. What we've gotten from the guides is that at times he is connecting to his higher self. So he is human, and to the extent that, yes, absolutely, there is a higher self. Does that mean there's no clones or anything like that? Not necessarily. The original has a higher self. I do think pretty much anybody of any significant importance out there, they have doubles for. And so we should be aware of that. And I think you'll be able to, and many of you probably can do right now. You could tell when it's the original and when it's Memorex.
You do. It's that ability to quiet the soul. When you think about it, think about anger or frustration or trauma. These are like boiling water, and it's not until you can turn that burner down and really create this stillness that you can see what's in that water, or you can see your own reflection, and you can see deep within and what's truly in the water. So that's why when we have traumas, we're in anger, we're in pain, we're in ego. All these are things that cut us off from the truth.
Yes, absolutely. You guys are great. Methadone free Nikki. As soon as I see methadone free, I think that's Nikki, because Nikki's overcome a big time addiction. So, cheers, and, huge thumbs up for doing that, because the system is all about giving us different things we could be addicted to. AI is one of those. They want you addicted to AI. They don't want you developing to your full potential. I mean, it's right there in all the stories. It's even there in that Masonic interpretation of the Hiram Abiff myth, which again, there's truth in there. You just have to discern it. So we see, to Melania's right, Little Baron. I think in some ways Baron is a bridge. Cindy did do his chart given his birth date, which
very interesting.
I feel there's deception there, honestly.
Well, there is. You're feeling right. Let me explain what you're feeling here.
Okay.
So Mike is feeling the deception, and we did go back and forth a little bit about, okay, what exactly is going on here? And when we look at his chart, he has this really interesting Rahu sun in his second house, and second house is family, it's your speech. But more so, when you see Rahu sun, when they're together, you're seeing a very two-faced personality. So I believe that they are presenting him as human, and he is not. I don't think he's fully human. I think there's DNA changes. I think there's DNA stuff in there that we're going to find out later. So he's having to portray himself right now as human. I think there's going to be information coming out on him much later that we're all going to find out, realize who he is. So to me, with this conjunction, that is what you are feeling. That's the deception you're feeling. So.
Yeah, and as you're saying that, see, these are how the realizations work. As she's saying that, then it's reaffirming in my mind the feeling of him being a bridge. Right. I could totally see him introducing us to some Anunnakis, and at the same time, they might be a foot and a half taller than
right.
him, and he's almost a foot taller than everybody else. But it's part of the genes. I think he's a CRISPR baby, to a degree. I mean, there's gene manipulation going on there. This is, again, it's nothing that would be able to be verified unless he decided to share, or they decided to share. I'm going on intuition. I'm going on vibe and feeling. I think in some ways he is to be more important than Donald. And it's not just me that has gotten that feeling. I think a lot of you guys, you could sense that.
Yeah, I know other people who were having trouble just even seeing his energy, and I think it is because of that DNA change that makes it difficult to read. So once you go in there and change the DNA from human to something else, it can throw us off a little bit. We're kind of, the playing field is now different. So when you're looking at things, you don't know exactly what you're looking at, and that's what prevents us from our understanding. Is you might be able to see it, but you don't know what it is. So that's what we have going on. The other thing with him, which is really interesting, is his planets are not in good positions. And I would think with somebody of his stature and status, he would have planets that are, in the best position possible, but they're just not. So it leads me to believe that he is a different type of being. He's a bridge. We're going to find out things through Baron that we really did not realize, or we don't understand right now. And who knows, maybe we'll all be sitting around this very large table having coffee, talking about, you remember that show you did on Baron, and then they announced this? Yeah, that would be fun. That would be really, really fun. So, there's something definitely going on with his chart. Extremely intelligent, though.
Well, again, Rahu is a node of the moon, and so Rahu is intensity, it's drive, it's focus. The sun is the soul, so it's amplifying it.
It's also the father.
And it's also the father. He has Mercury in the first house. He'll be able to communicate, and Mars over there in the fourth house. It's just fascinating to see this. But I think, again, what we're looking at is really a tug of war going on, not just with humanity and the controllers, but within some of these controller families, their fight with their own higher selves. And what you have is this archonic demonic energy that's trying to maintain control over these people in positions to really change the planet, especially if they spill the beans en masse, or to truly work to dissolve the dark power structure. They could cause havoc, and the controllers know, the dark matrix controllers know, they only have limited time. They understand that so clearly, yet they want to maintain the power structure as long as possible. And again, they use humans as batteries. This is what the Matrix movie really truly exposed us to. Mm-hmm. And whether we're looking at Terminator, that exposed us to the dangers of AI. Or what was that other one? Do you want to play a game? With the nuclear war thing from back in the 80s, mm-hmm. And the AI deciding that, hey, humans are the only threat to me, so I got to get rid of them.
And the other things about his chart, and we'll have to do a whole nother separate show, but an extremely long life. He's positioned where he's going to have a very, very long life. Makes me wonder, is this going to be abnormally long? And then I was looking at his past life chart. There's a huge disconnect from the mother. There's a huge disconnect from the mother. That really has me wondering too. So I'm going to sit with that and go into where I go to see the past life and see what else I can pick out, and probably have Mike record that.
So when we look into this and we look at these beings, I can't help but think about the parallels from Rome. Remember, Rome was a republic, and then what did it become? An empire, right? Here, over here, you're looking at Julius Caesar, Crassus, and Pompey. This is the first triumvirate. What's that? Well, what happened was there was this power struggle and tug of power that was going on, and three of the most dominant, wealthy, and powerful beings in Rome ended up sharing power. Three of them came together and basically were, instead of going to try to kill each other, they decided, let's work together. We'll split up the power in three. So Julius Caesar, Crassus, and Pompey. Pompey, by the way, Pompey Magnus. Wait a minute, Magnus, Latin. Pompey the Great. The Great. Doesn't that sound familiar? Make America Great Again? Yeah. Again, we've talked about this in the past. The same beings do incarnate time and time and time again. That's part of the big reveal, and they come here at key parts in our bigger history. As you see here, Marcus Licinius Crassus, the richest man in ancient Rome. And again, we're going back to the power structure that was in place then, 2,000 plus years ago, and it's the same power structure we have now. And when you look at the way things were, you could see what was going on. They always fight amongst themselves. This is a given. They fight amongst themselves. The way they operate still the same. So Crassus, now who is Crassus? Who could he possibly be? I have not gotten anything definitive on that, but I do feel pretty convinced, honestly, and I've looked at it multiple times, who Pompey is, and also who Julius Caesar is, because I do think both of them are incarnated right now. But Crassus had a fortune. Oh yes, silver mines. Not just silver mines. Oh gosh, you can't make it up. So when you look to Marcus Crassus and his rise to power being one of the three most powerful people in Rome, some of his wealth was acquired conventionally through slave trafficking. Oh boy, that's not nice. No, it's not nice. Production from silver mines and speculative real estate purchases. Crassus bought property that was confiscated in proscriptions and by notoriously purchasing burnt and collapsed buildings. Plutarch wrote that, observing how frequent such occurrences were, meaning buildings burning, how many wildfires there were, and the fact that this one person bought slaves who were architects and builders. When he had over 500 slaves, he bought houses that had burnt and the adjacent ones because their owners would let go at a trifling price. He bought the largest part of Rome in that way. The first ever Roman fire brigade was created by Crassus. Fires were almost a daily occurrence in Rome. Crassus took advantage of the fact that Rome had no fire department by creating his own brigade, 500 men strong, which rushed into burning buildings at the first cry of alarm. Upon arriving at the scene, however, the firefighters did nothing, while Crassus offered to buy the burning building from the distressed property owner at a miserable price. If the owner agreed to sell the property, the men would put out the fire. If he refused, they would simply let the structure burn to the ground. After buying many properties this way, he rebuilt them and often leased the properties to their original owners or new tenants. Hello, Klaus. Klaus, is this where you learned from?
Yes, there's so much here that, if we look at it in a certain perspective with our minds open, it brings about more information. So I like that.
I mean, think about that. here they are. They could put the fire out, but they won't put the fire out unless you agree to sell for pennies. This is the exact same thing we have been witnessing in our own lives. There's no difference. This is the system. They manipulate markets. They control the markets. They inside trade. Insider trading, this is nothing new. This isn't necessarily the Democrats. They certainly have done it. But it's both sides. It's the system.
And this is what they do. So it has a little bit different face on it.
Slavery, market manipulation, strange fires. You can't make this up, guys. This is exactly what the system does. And this one's not opening. Let's see here. Oh, they don't like me saying that, so now nothing's going to open. There we go. There he is. Marcus Licinius Crassus. I don't know. I mean, where do I feel the energy? To me, it reminds me of that Gil Bates guy a little bit, energy-wise. But he's even got a little bit more dour face, stern face.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Hard to look at face.
Very hard. That one and that one. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if they were related. Now, when we talk about Pompey, yes, absolutely. Pompey Magnus. Most successful, one of the most successful military leaders that Rome had ever knew. And, what can you say about Pompey? Again, he was part of that triumvirate. So there's three people, three power brokers. And his greatest competitors, keep your, what's that old thing? Keep your enemies closer than your friends type of thing. Yeah. When you look at his face, and the guides had said about 47/45, that you could tell from the hair and the face. I still believe, I really do. I think this is the same soul, let us say, as Pompey the Great. And that's what Magnus means, great. And, Magnus, do you think it's just a coincidence? Maybe.
I don't know. Things tend to spiral, and they tend to be not quite the same, but close.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what happened with Pompey, ultimately he did die, and Crassus died in battle too. And then ultimately Caesar took control. But when you look at this, it's the same manipulations. It's civil war that ends up erupting. And, does that mean that the U.S. is in for a civil war? It certainly seems like that's a possibility, does it not? I think, again, the only way we could get to have it not happen is, again, by all of us doing our best job to let people know exactly what's going on and, refuse to go with the system. Keep putting out your positive frequencies, your positive energies, but we have to, at the same time, let people know what's really happening. And so when you look to Rome and you look to our situation this day, very, very, very similar situation. Pompey the Great. Make America great again. So Roman army under the rule of Sulla. When Sulla died in 78 BC, Pompey asked the Senate for a series of special high commands so he could deal with the revolts that were plaguing the Republic at that time. He quickly dealt with many problems plaguing Rome while all the time gaining more Senate-approved powers. In 70 BC, Pompey joined forces with the newly elected consul Crassus. Before he joined the triumvirate, he single-handedly redrew the map of Eastern Mediterranean by developing new cities throughout his conquest. Pompey, through his victories, had increased Rome's annual income by 70%. Yeah, absolutely. Most definitely was a very, very influential, strong leader. Ultimately did not have his own Caesarship, let's say. He did not become the single emperor that perhaps he had envisioned. As you look at a side profile there, I wonder if anybody else feels the resemblances. And then it's uncanny, I think, with Julius Caesar, with good old Vlad, the similarities. It's just, is it just me?
A lot of similarities, and it goes on and on. You know, it's almost like you can line up the controllers or human controllers at this point, and you can go back and you can look at these statues, and you just kind of keep drawing lines from one to the other, from one to the other. I mean, really strong resemblance. And you know, it's been my experience with past lives and with some other people that I've done past life readings on, that they truly do. They keep a sort of blueprint. So they come into this world looking very, very similar than what they did before. So this, to me, this is intriguing to see them looking so extremely similar.
And then here we have Augustus, Octavian, Caesar Augustus. We have July for Julius, Caesar, and then we have August for Augustus. And, you know, perhaps there was no Caesar more powerful or successful as Caesar Augustus, who was known as Octavian. When you look to Baron Trump, again, I feel that Baron's energy is the same as Caesar Augustus. The longest lived Caesar. He had a very, very long, successful reign, with, I think most historians would say he was the most effective ruler that Rome ever saw. And, you could see where Baron is being groomed. It's not Eric. It's not, the other ones. No, it's Baron. Everybody knows it's Baron. You could feel it. It's the energy that's there. His energy is palpable. It exceeds his father's, even though he's quiet and really hasn't given us much yet.
No, and you can tell this guy with his chart, he is very different than what he portrays in public. There are things going on that are not very pleasant for him either. At the same time, he's going to be very, very emotionally attached to his reputation and his job. So we can guarantee that he's really going to have to, what I like about his chart, what I see is there is going to be emotional attachment and to his reputation. So he's going to have to really believe in something to make it happen and move forward. And I do think he does have positive to add in the future. I don't think anything is all negative ever. We live in a rule of polarity. So that, I think, if there's any saving grace moving forward, it is going to be the position of his moon and his reputation, and him needing to care about what he does.
Yeah. Will he run in, I guess 2044? Will there even be a United States at that point? Again, I think we have this tendency to think things are moving faster than necessarily they will, even though it definitely seems that things are moving very fast now. A lot of times things just take a little bit longer. And we also have this thought that, this is the end of the world as we know it, but it transitions, and it transitions into something different. We don't get that the world's going to blink out of existence. We don't see us all being covered in cataclysmic floods and stuff. I think, again, Barbara Handclough did a book called Catastrophobia, and her argument was that that's what happened at the Younger Dryas event, and that it's deeply embedded, the trauma of that is deeply embedded in us, and we fear, again, the death from the sky and all the impacts and the just, craziness, but we don't see it. And, again, we've asked the guides, there will be earthquakes, there will be major earthquakes. I wouldn't be surprised at all if we had Cascadia, San Andreas, New Madrid all pop off pretty soon, but that doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Again, it's just part of the bigger cleansing that's going on. And when you look again at Baron Trump and you think about those books, some people say those books didn't exist. You know, the ones that were written 1800 or 1900, The Last President and Baron Trump's Great Adventures. Some say that that whole thing is a psyop inserted by the alphabet soups, and that those books were never really written, that all that information has been stuck into our internet by the alphabet soups, and it wasn't really there.
Now we have to ask ourselves, would they ever lie and do something like that to the public?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So again, the first true Roman emperor and the most celebrated one, will that be, Baron Trump? Is he Octavian all again? Ah, yes. His great-uncle adoptive father was Julius Caesar. Yeah, it's just fascinating to see history repeat itself. And, here we go. We're going through another period where maybe the American Republic, the Republic of the United States of America, be reborn as some sort of empire. But the reality is, again, as we know, the politicians, it's for human consumption. Ah, yes, so that the real power structure lies in the shadows, but they can't do it anymore because it's the big unveiling, that big event known as the apocalypse, and humans are waking up. Yes, their energy bodies are being activated, pineal glands are being activated. We're going to have fluoride coming out of the public water supply. That's going to be a step in the positive direction. They're removing the dyes. That's another step in the positive direction. I do understand the frustration when we look to RFK Jr. and 47 as far as, why don't they just, get rid of it all right now, right away? Because, again, the power structure is not going to give their power away. We have to wrest it away by awakening as many as we can, wherever we possibly can.
And something to keep in mind, because it's not always easy to talk to family. It's not always easy to talk to anybody. If I learned one thing being a mom, raising my kids, it's your children they don't really listen to what you say, but I promise you, they watch what you do. So that's our key to me, anyway.
Absolutely. So shine your light brightly. Be aware of all the masks that the politicians are wearing. And, truly, it's again, something that's very powerful. Put your prayers and intention to those that, maybe they've been using us for their own power and abuse. But if we do send prayers and intention that they be reconnected with their higher selves, that their light might shine down from the higher densities, when they have that realization, that awakening in them, then they won't be able to keep going on doing what they've done to the planet and to all of us. So, again, by praying for them and putting out positive energy, that they could be literally the best version of themselves. It's almost like short-circuiting the entire plans of the dark side.
I know, and I want to say one more time a quick thank you to our moderators. You guys help make it all possible. Everyone else keeping the room at peace, and everyone else who help us wherever you can. And you guys, this all wouldn't be possible without you. And we so appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we couldn't do it without you guys. We invite you all to join us on Patreon. And we will be doing more lives on a regular basis. Every Thursday, we're on R. Wayne Steiger's channel at 12 Central Time. And we are anticipating coming back tomorrow here on Evolutionary.
Maybe a little earlier tomorrow at 8? Before we work on people.
Yeah, 8 Central, because we do energy work, Vedic astrology charts, clearing chakras, blocks, spiritual coaching, pretty much most days of the week with people every continent except for Antarctica. Nobody has called from Antarctica yet. We're still waiting, though. Yeah, at some point in time. hopefully. As always, guys, much love, source bless, and namaste.
Namaste.